Okay. So thanks for having me. I was quite surprised to be invited to talk at this event. And I'm going to take you through my data science journey. So my background is quite diverse in that I think midway through my career, I actually swapped to be more into um, algorithms and what we would now call data science. But initially, my undergrad was in microelectronic engineering. When I graduated with that degree, it gave me a really good foundation for problem solving. But finding work in electronics in Brisbane at the time was really difficult. But I basically leveraged my programming skills and then swapped to, at the time, the internet and multimedia were quite big. And so I transitioned to those particular areas and ended up working for quite a long time at universities, developing learning management systems and learning tools. Um, at the same time, I was really active in writing web development books, and I've written 9 of those over my career. But what you'll notice is there was a distinct change in my trajectory from about 2008, essentially. I was almost starting to head down that project manager route. Um, and after that point in time, I actually swapped to something called learning analytics and started doing more research. So, learning analytics is really the data science of education. Um, and basically, that event that happened in 2008 actually then triggered me to both do research in that area, but pursue a PhD in text analysis. Um, and after that, I actually returned to just developing educational tools. And then I managed to get the Learning Analytics Manager role at UQ. And I've done that for a couple of years. And then with generative AI, I found myself really, really interested in doing research again. And I was really, really lucky to be able to transition from professional staff back into academia. And so at the moment at the University of Queensland, I'm currently a senior lecturer within the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. So essentially, what was that trigger point in 2008 that made me diversely change my career path? Um, it all came down to reading a book. Um, Fortunately, I didn't quite get the book when it was first released, and I was kind of getting to it a year later. But it was a book called Programming Collective Intelligence. And you can see it's a blurry picture, obviously published in 2007. But the main thing here was that, as you can see, it was about building smarter web applications. And so I was quite into building applications and doing a lot of programming work. But this book, I just could not stop reading it. I pretty much tried all the code, read it from cover to cover. And it was all really about these algorithms and all the different things that you could do. And it had a drastic impact on my entire life and career. Um, I would say I've been really lucky with the mentors that I have had. And I've always been supported in my career. So I would say Professor Shane Dawson at UniSA, um, he got me into learning analytics research and is still a constant supporter and mentor of mine. My PhD supervisor, Professor Peter Bruiser. So I completed my PhD at QUT, and that was all in looking at text analysis. And Peter's basically supported me not knowing much about mathematics or algorithms and really taught me all about matrix factorization algorithms. And finally, in my role as manager of learning analytics at UQ, my supervisor for that particular role has always served as a constant mentor, encouraging me to apply for the role to begin with, step up to management, and has always really supported my career inside there. So I think having good mentors and supporters is really important for anybody embarking on any sort of journey, let alone a data science one. So I've obviously transitioned back to academia, and as I said before, I'm quite interested in generative AI. And you'd realize that a lot of the data science process or aspects of it can, to a large part, be automated. So things like the OpenAI code interpreter or advanced data analysis tool, you can actually just upload a data set, and there's a lot of things like data cleaning, visualization via prompting that you can actually start to do. So I'm interested in this from more of the perspective of, how do we help people in different disciplines now start to get involved, whether you're hardcore data science, or you're coming more from the social sciences areas. What sort of AI literacy do we need? And particularly, it's trying to get that domain-specific knowledge into the process. Even though you're using generative AI, how do we get the complex problem solving still happening so that you're at a level so that you're able to validate and test as well as debug? So my research at the moment is looking at this both from programming perspective, but I'm also really interested, obviously, based on my background, about data science. And finally, I'd just like to talk about equity and diversity. Data science really needs diverse groups of individuals. We need varied perspectives and approaches, particularly to problem solving, and also that we can actually take these different perspectives to looking at biases in our data and algorithms. So that's obviously really important. I think, though, from my perspective, both in high school and even doing my undergrad and some of my postgrad, math was really not very accessible. It's pretty much, I think, the way it's actually taught. And I think to actually get equity and diversity, we really need to take a look at our maths education, particularly for maths and statistics, and particularly in our foundation courses. We need to be able to demonstrate applications and possibilities earlier to students. It obviously needs to be a lot less theoretical. And we also need to, especially with generative AI, start to look at how compute in terms of GPU access can be made more affordable. I didn't realize until putting together this talk, but I've actually written a couple of blog posts, and this was around about 2018, 2019. It was actually geared towards learning math for machine learning and deep learning. And this was because coming back in, I had to relearn a lot of the maths that I had forgotten. And a lot of the resources were not really suitable or just hard to understand. But there were definitely resources out there that made it more accessible. And I think to address equity and diversity in data science, looking at these foundation courses should really be our first step, because that's a gateway and a pathway to pulling a lot more people into data science. So thank you for having me.